So I want to teach you guys some rules of comedy. I have a lot of couples who love to be playful and have fun with each other. And actually, I'm a big proponent of joking and laughter. So that's a good thing. However, I have noticed that some of you guys are getting into hot water around how you're using your comedy. So I just want to teach you a few tips for how to improve your comedy experience with your partner. So the first tip is just know your audience. Even comedians, like if you've ever gone to a show where there's a comedian, they will do a couple of tester jokes in the beginning to basically test their audience. So what they'll do is they'll put a couple of jokes out there, and then if the audience responds well, then they know they can go further. But if the audience responds poorly, then they bring it back. You can use a similar technique when you're testing jokes with your partner. Put a little tester joke out there, see how they respond, and if they respond well, then you're likely able to go further than that. But if they don't respond well, then you know, oh, okay, I need to take that back a notch. So just remember tip one, know your audience, and the more you get to know your partner, the easier it will be to have fun humor with them. But a second tip is to avoid vulnerable topics. I think sometimes people are using sarcasm to try and bring up tough topics because they want to bring it up or they want to try and address it, but they're trying to do it, I guess, nicely. But using sarcasm or humor on a vulnerable topic tends to have the opposite effect. So I'm not saying that some people don't respond well, because everybody is their own unique individual. But I've seen it enough times to notice that it'd probably be better to avoid some of those vulnerable topics when it comes to jokes. There are plenty of things that you can play about that don't have to be somebody's sore spot. And then another tip, a final tip, is to avoid joking at other people's expense. Now, of course, everybody's different, and to understand this tip, I want to teach you a little bit about guy versus girl culture. So in guy culture, they actually poke at each other's expense all the time. In fact, I had somebody say to me the other day that it would be weird to poke at somebody that was a stranger. It's almost like a term of endearment. Like once guys get close to each other, then they are messing with each other, or what we call joshing each other, and they're saying, you're a jerk, or you're so stupid. You know, they'll say things like that, you know, how guys would actually say, because I'm not a guy, right? But so anyhow, when you mix guy culture, though, with girl culture is a little bit different. We don't joke at each other's expense. Often, if we do make jokes, it's about somebody outside of the group, not somebody within the group. Or if it is any joking at expense, it's very light stuff, very little. It wouldn't be much. And so what I see is sometimes when a guy and a girl are in a relationship together, the guy is poking at his girlfriend's expense or his wife's expense in a similar way that he would do with his guy friends, and then the girl, his wife or his partner, is taking it personally. And so I would just adjust that. You know, it doesn't mean you can't have jokes. There's plenty of things to play about, but be careful about joking at your partner's expense. Now, I mean, a final thing that I want you all to remember is that every person is a unique individual. So even though I've said some of these rules, there are quite a few people who fall outside of those rules, and men who can take things personally if you make a joke at their expense, and women who can take a joke like any other person. So don't use these as hard and fast rules, but understand and, you know, go back to that first tip, know your audience and understand that your partner is a unique person, but that you have to learn as much as you can about them so that you have jokes that work well and you can have a great time with each other.